One thing I wish I'd done in 2017 was review Laila's Wisdom by Rapsody. I listened to it quite a lot back when it first came out, but I never really had anything to say about it. It was a very weird listen for me. I thought it was solid overall, but I just didn't find myself having anything to say. To be fair, most people had already spoken about it at the time too, so I just left it for everyone else to kind of give all the praises to Rapsody, because it was a big moment for her to break out into a much bigger crowd. She'd had her moment on To Pimp a Butterfly, but obviously this album was more of her breakout release. But because I was never really left wowed by Laila's Wisdom, I wasn't really that excited for Eve, and then I heard the lead single for the album, which didn't leave any impression on me at all, so I was even less excited to hear this. Plus the response so far to this album's kind of been a bit quiet since it came out, so I'm just a bit surprised that, people are a bit more lukewarm on this one than they were before. But having heard it, I can kind of see why. I think Eve is a huge letdown considering the potential that Rapsody displayed on Laila's Wisdom and on multiple guest features since then too, because I just don't really get that much energy out of her on this one. I don't really find her to be rapping in a way that keeps me all that interested for the whole runtime. Keep in mind that the runtime is 1 hour and 5 minutes as well, which I just think is totally unnecessary for this album, especially considering by the end it kind of fizzles out in terms of the concept as well. Like, I don't really feel like it's that much of a tight concept to keep it going for that long, and then when you get to the end with the guest features from Jid, J. Cole and a few others as well, it just kind of feels like the songs are just being piled on for the sake of it. So the album's concept is pro-woman, essentially pro-black woman to be more specific, with every track pretty much being named after a famous black woman. Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Serena Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, and many others too. But the songs themselves just don't really offer that much excitement, really. Like, I just feel like if you're gonna be that positive on an album, you need to bring it with your delivery. You need to bring it with the hooks, you know what I mean? But they're just not there. Most of the beats are very much 90s inspired. There's a bit of soulful, jazzy sampling going on throughout too. It's mostly boom bap type stuff, so it does get older very quickly, I think, because throughout the album, all I'm thinking is I've heard these beats a million times before. And sometimes I literally have heard these beats before, like I mentioned with the single earlier, which was really not an exciting way to lead the album, I don't think. The song actually is just Liquid Swords by GZA. It's just Liquid Swords. The beat is the exact same. Nothing is done to it. I just don't get it. I mean, sure, the hook is slightly different with D'Angelo singing it instead of what it was back in the 90s, but it's still the same words being said, and I just don't see why you needed to just do this. Can't you just change it a little bit, make it your own? I just don't see the purpose of this. It's one of the laziest tracks I think I've heard this year. It's one of my least favorites just for the fact that it is so lazy. It doesn't sound terrible, but just the lack of effort that's been put into spinning this song into your own. You could do something with the beat, but you just don't. Rhapsody is better than this to me, I think. So many of these beats are just so stale and dated, and it's like only just come out. It's just really weird to me that she's not really pushing herself over a unique type of production. The track Power from her last album had that. It had so much bite to it. And Rhapsody came on the beat sounding feisty, hungry, and yet she's just not bringing it on this one. The track Oprah, though, might be my least favourite, just for that hook. Again, like, some of the hooks on this album are pretty weak, but this is by far the weakest because it's just so lazy. And the guest feature on here as well doesn't add much to the song. In fact, it's a bit of an annoying feature to me. The pro-woman message that I mentioned earlier, it's nice enough throughout, but again, it just doesn't really go that far into anything that's really worth reading into. Like a track like Michelle, like the chorus is just like, where my girls at? Yeah, hey, let's go out and get together. Yeah. You know, like, this is the best you got. I mean, come on, come on. There is a solid interlude throughout the album, though, that, you know, talks about the struggle of being a black woman. And that's about, like, the closest you get to some kind of real insight on the whole concept, I think, because it actually goes into a specific amount of detail on a thing that most of Rhapsody's rapping doesn't even touch on, really. I just kind of feel like she meanders a bit with a lot of her rapping. It doesn't really stick to one thing, and it just makes it harder to get by the concept, I think. Even with that said, though, you can kind of bypass stuff like that on albums. You know, the concept isn't the most important thing of an album. So if you can, you know, give a great delivery, you can bring the songs and make them great, then it honestly it overlooks things like that sometimes. But her monotone delivery, her samey flows on every song just get really boring after a few songs. And I know for a fact someone in the comments who's not subscribed to me is probably going to be like, well, you would excuse if it was from a male rapper. Men get excused for this type of thing all the time. Well, just think of this. I mean, I said the same thing with Bandana. I felt the exact same with Freddie on that album, where his monotone delivery just got really stale 3 or 4 tracks into the album. And I know he did switch up his flows sometimes, but it wasn't really enough to differentiate track to track, I don't think. And that's exactly the same here. That monotonous gruff tone to Rhapsody's voice is really boring quite quickly. Like, it gets old quickly, is what I'm trying to say. I mentioned the features already with Jid and, you know, D'Angelo, Jizza, J. Cole. The J. Cole feature is just a J. Cole feature. I didn't really get anything out of it. There's a funny moment with the Jid one, though, where he says bitch, and then Rhapsody calls him out for saying bitch. Like, you know, who you calling a bitch? Probably could have taken that a bit further, I think, though. You know, there's nothing wrong with adding a bit of humour. They probably could have had more interplay to kind of play off that, I think, a bit more. It goes a long way on an album like this that's so serious and straight-faced. I mean, just listen to any Little Brother album and you'll see that you can turn something serious and twist it into a joke. They can do it so easily, and it would just be nice to hear a bit of that on an album like this. It's so long and drawn out that you need something to break it up, and unfortunately the features don't offer that, and it is just a slog to sit through. I really don't feel that this album showcases Rhapsody's best talents, and certainly my review isn't showing how talented she is, but I can't really speak on it that much when the album doesn't really showcase her best abilities. She can rap better than this. She can definitely make use of her beats better than this. She could definitely think of better hooks than some of the ones on this. Yeah, this is a bit of a dud. Gonna go 5 out of 10. Let me know what you think of this. If you think it's a lot better than I'm giving it credit for, that's fine. Thank you for watching my review. Have a good day. Tell me what I should review next as well. Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye.